Magandang umaga, Malacañang Press Corps. Welcome sa ating press briefing ngayong araw, January 28. Naging saksi si Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. sa paglagda kahapon ng Synergy Grid and Development Philippines Incorporated at OSGP at Maharlika Investment Corporation sa isang kasunduan na magbibigay ng share sa pamahalaan sa SGP na may 40.2% ownership sa National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. Ito ang kauna-unahang investment ng MIC na inaasahang makatutulong sa pakikibahagi ng ating pamahalaan para mabigyan ng access ang mga Pilipino sa kalidad at murang kuryente. At para bigyan pa tayo ng detalye patungkol dito, kasama natin ngayon si Maharlika Investment Corporation President and CEO Rafael Consing Jr. at Department of Energy Secretary Rafael Lotilla. Good morning, President Consing and Secretary Lotilla.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sir, may we ask for a short opening statement?
Yeah. You want to...
Okay, well, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to answer questions. We have been looking at these investments for quite some time now, and after months of negotiations, we've finally been able to achieve our objective, which is to get Synergy Grid and Development Corporation of the Philippines to accept our offer to acquire 20% interest in SGP, which in turn, like what I said earlier, owns about 40% effective ownership interest in NGCP. I'm happy to respond to detailed questions later, whatever questions you may have. So we're looking forward to this press conference. Thank you.
Secretary Lotilla.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, President Consing. So this, I would like to stress that the government investment in the transmission sector is part of the government's medium-term development plan. If you recall, the Philippine Development Plan, which was approved by the President even way before Maharlika Investment Fund was created, looks at government investment in transmission sector as a desirable objective, because then through this we would be able to achieve more reliable and more secure as well as affordable supply of electricity, and that investment has now been realized with Maharlika Investment Fund investing in NGCP through the Synergy Grid of the Philippines. So we look forward to realizing the goals that have been set out by the President for the energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lotilla and President Consing. We're now opening the floors for questions from our media friends. Ulat Bayan, Radyo Pilipinas.
Sir, good morning po. Sir, when do we expect na ma-complete po yung acquisition para maging ganap po yung pag-upo natin sa 2 board seats? And after that, sir, sino po kaya from the government side yung kakatawan sa government dun sa 2 board seats sa NGCP?
We are hoping to be able to sign the transaction documents within 90 days. And failing that, we have an extension of another 90 days, so a total of 180 days maximum. As to who will represent us, at the moment, that's not been decided yet. So we'll defer to the wisdom of the board as to who will be appointed. Thank you.
Sir, can we get exact figures? How much did the government shell out for the 20% ng NGCP? And sir, I know it's too early to say, pero regarding lang po sa return of investment, kung how much po kaya yung in-expect natin or yung projected natin na makukuha dito sa shares na to?
Sure, thank you. So the total proceeds will be about 19.7 billion pesos, representing 20% of SGP. With an effective price of 15 pesos as an issue price rather, 15 pesos per preferred share. And the preferred share will guarantee us with a 6.5% dividend yield over the first 3 years, wherein following which, within those 3 years, we would then need to convert, or we've got the option, rather, to convert to common shares. Failing which, the dividend rate would then rise to 8%.
Eden Santos, Net 25.
Good morning po, Secretary. Good morning, sir. Tanong ko lang po, bakit po NGCP ang una nating investment? Paano po ito makatutulong para sa pagkakaroon ng mababang presyo ng kuryente at sapat na supply, matatag na supply ng kuryente? Alam naman po natin na sa panahong ito, tuloy-tuloy po yung pagtaas ng singil sa kuryente. Kung meron mang pagbaba, napakaliit lang na bahagi po.
Okay, salamat. So yung unang tanong po muna, bakit po NGCP? So nung una pa po na set up yun, na-establish yung Maharlika at na-appoint po ako, siguro nakita po na lahat ng aming mga interviews na kung saan sinasabi ko ng unang investment po namin ay magiging sa energy sector. Napaka-importante po yan. Energy security sits at the top of our priorities. We believed, and a study, in fact, has been made by the DOE, which points to the conclusion that power precedes progress. And what you want to be able to do is to pursue that through our investment and by being able to support NGCP in rolling out po yung kanilang transmission grid infrastructure. As to the second question, which is paano may bababa ang cost ng kuryente. So kung titignan po nila, yung cost po ng kuryente, marami pong pinanggagalingan yan. No? So yung transmission cost, isa po yan sa mga cost ng nagbubuo ng ating binabayarang kuryente per kilowatt hour. Tama po yung sinasabi nila na 3.1% lang po yung contribution ng or the cost of basically paying for the transmission cost of power to the distribution utilities. The way NGCP can contribute to lower electricity is by ensuring that rollout indeed happens. Because once you've got that transmission grid infrastructure being rolled out, then successfully, then you would have more power players that can in fact get onto the grid and provide supply to the grid. And obviously, just like any commodity, as you've got more supply coming in, the price of power will at some point in time come down. Second to consider, ma'am, is the composition of that supply of power. Right? So at the moment, meron pong aim na abutin yung 35% renewable power ng government by 2030 and 50% by 2040. And hopefully we can help achieve that, again, by supporting the rollout of NGCP, because renewable power over the long term is in fact going to reduce that cost of power for everyone.
Ibig ko lang dagdagan yung sinabi ni President Consing. No? So, naalala ninyo yung Mindanao-Visayas Interconnection Project ay natapos lamang itong 2024. At ang epekto nito ay ang wholesale electricity spot market prices natin ay actually bumaba dahil natapos yung interconnection. So yung just to give you an example, yung reduction ng spot prices in Luzon was 1 peso and 99 centavos, which is almost 2 pesos. 177 in the Visayas and 1 peso and 30 pesos per kilowatt hour in Mindanao. So just to show you that after a transmission project is finished, it can actually contribute to lowering prices because it addresses the constraints, the transmission constraints that drive prices up. So as we roll out more of these projects, then mas lalong walang balakid sa pag-supply ng kuryente. So noon, yung Mindanao na merong 800 megawatts na extra or overcapacity ay ngayon nakapag-export na sa Visayas at Luzon ng 400 megawatts dahil natapos yung proyekto. So yon yung contribution ng transmission sa one example of a direct contribution sa lowering of rates. So sa security of supply, dahil nga yung ating mga generation plants ay kung magpapatayo tayo ng bagong generations plant, titingnan nila yung transmission development plan. Saan ba ang mga linya ng NGCP at kailan ito matatapos? So ay iplano nila yung construction ng kanilang generation plants para magkatugma sa schedule din ng NGCP. Kung hindi ito magkakatugma, nagkakaroon tayo ng stranded power. Hindi nagagamit kahit tapos na yung generation plant. So ang ating ekonomiya cannot afford such wasted power. And that's again a way of increasing the security of supply dahil nga on time yung pagpasok ng bagong generation plants dahil nandyan yung transmission wires, nandyan yung substations of NGCP. So again, nagko-contribute din ito sa reliability and resiliency dahil like nakita natin noon, yung sa Panay nagkaroon ng blackout, no? Pero dahil natapos na yung transmission lines, yung supply from Mindanao could go to Cebu and from Cebu go to Negros and Panay where they are needed. So that's just examples of how itong mga broad objectives ay makakamit natin kung magkaroon ng mas magandang pamamalakad at pag-expand ng transmission lines.
One lang po. Since nagsimula na po tayong pumasok sa mag-invest ang Maharlika Investment Corporation, paano po natin matitiyak sa taong bayan na hindi po mapapasok ng korupsyon yung pondo gaya po ng pangunahing nagiging pangamba po dito sa pondo na ito?
Okay, good question po yan. No? So, in fact, pag makikita po nila yung gagawin natin dito sa NGCP, planned investment into SGP and NGCP, puro primary shares po siya, 100% primary shares. Meaning, ang ibig sabihin po niyan is, pag primary shares po, lahat po ng capital na invest po natin, pupunta diretso sa kumpanya para siya namang gamitin para pagsuporta sa rollout ng CAPEX ng NGCP.
Next question, Christian Yusores, Radyo 630.
Morning, sirs. To President Consing, sir, you were appointed November 2023, right, sir? Pero bakit po kaya umabot ng January 2025 tayo nakapag-secure ng first investment? Ano po yung mga naging challenges sa MIC para ngayon lang po makapag-secure ng first investment?
Actually, hindi naman po siya challenges, no? But rather, this is the process in terms of setting up an organization. When I joined po in November 3, 2023, we only had the law behind us. The board was appointed in December the 3rd, and then our first board meeting occurred in January 3rd of 2024. So, and from January 3rd rather, it took us quite a bit of time in terms of setting up the organization, obtaining our approvals, writing our frameworks, drafting the charters, and basically ensuring that we've got in place a proper organization in order for us to be able to move forward. We received our authority to hire only in the latter part of July. And from then, of course, we had to choose the right people. And once we've identified also our investment, it took time for us to undertake due diligence, our preliminary due diligence, for example, in SGP and other projects that we will announce after SGP. You know. So it takes a bit of time in terms of looking for and executing these investments. So I would not look at this as delayed, but rather it just takes really that much time to undertake investments.
one follow-up lang po. Yung dito po sa deal po sa Synergy Grid, what made them say yes po sa naging offer natin to have 20% stake doon sa NGCP?
I believe that both parties saw a compelling benefit for having, in fact, the government, well, A, new capital coming in to help the rollout, and B, to have, in fact, someone like Maharlika or an institutional investor to basically work with them in again, achieving this rollout plans and vision of HGCP. So I think that makes a lot of sense for both.
Last na lang po. So, sir, na-mention nyo na energy security is top priority. After NGCP, may mga nakasusunod na po bang mga other areas of investment na nilook forward po ang Maharlika investment?
Yes, from an energy perspective, no? Yes. So in fact, before you may have seen that we've announced, for example, an MOU with Mindoro and also in Palawan. No? So if you step back, what are we trying to do? So once we identified energy as our top priority, we've then decided to ask ourselves which part of that energy ecosystem in fact requires the most number of investment, the biggest amount of investment, and the highest impact. And that would be in the distribution lines. I don't mean utilities, but rather transmission, whether it's grid, or whether we're speaking of the grid infrastructure, or if we're talking about the secondary transmission grids in the islands. You're all familiar with the term SPUGs, no? The small power utility groups. There are about 34 of them, and roughly about 70% of the subsidy that goes to SPUG, in fact, only goes to two SPUGs. That would be Mindoro and Palawan. So it tells you that there's demand. People currently are paying for the true cost of power because the demand for power there is beyond what the current NPC and capacity can provide. So beyond that, they're in fact paying for the true cost of power, right? So there's been negligible investment in these areas over the past years, and we feel that investing in these island grids would in fact also spur development, but this time driven by the countryside. So whether we're talking about national grid or island grids, you see that it's basically the most important part of the entire electricity ecosystem.
So don't forget the developmental aspects of the investments of Maharlika as well, because here the islands of Mindoro and Palawan, for example, are among the faster growing economies island economies in the country, and the additional investments that can be made is going to unleash a lot of potential in these islands. I like always to say that the town of Sablayan in Mindoro Occidental is bigger than even the entire province of Cavite. So when we open up when we complete, for example, the backbone, the circumferential backbone for electricity in the entire island, then we will be able to share the capacities throughout the entire island and tap the renewable energy sources, and more importantly, bring down the price of electricity being paid by the people in Mindoro itself, and reduce the subsidy that is being provided and paid for by the consumers in the on-grid areas of the country. So this is where all of these converge. President Consing has more to say about these things.
Basically just supporting the point being made by the Secretary. So hence, Mr. Secretary, if I may quote the study, the conclusion of the study that the DOE, the DOE conducted a study before wherein they determined the impact of electrification in the rural areas. And it was determined there that if you provide a poor family from 0 to 8 hours of electricity, it raises their propensity to generate income and expenditure of roughly about 14 to 15%. And if you raise that from 8 to 16 hours, it goes up by about, and if you raise that to 24 hours, it in fact rises by about 50%. So it tells you that power precedes progress. And that's what we want to be able to help catalyze and also enable in these particular two SPUG areas.
Next question, Pia Gutierrez, ABS-CBN News.
Okay, President Consing, sir. Sir, you were talking about due diligence. Did we consider before making the investment all the issues being faced by the NGCP right now, especially in Congress, particularly mga allegations of violations of their franchise, and especially with lawmakers even pushing the return of the control of the country's power grid to the government?
Yes, so we've undertaken preliminary due diligence following the signing of or the acceptance of our offer. We will then undertake deeper due diligence. But that said, we are aware of all these issues, and we have considered that in our investment decision.
I just would like to add briefly that in the country, the Philippines is unique in that it is Congress that grants franchises directly to public utilities. So that's the reason why we in the department are happy that Congress is taking an active role in discussions regarding the franchise not only of NGCP but of other public utilities in the energy sector as well, is because it raises the quality of discussions. And we are able to identify what are the things that we would need to do in order to help delivery on the part of the public utilities of their services to the public. So it's a continuing activity, and I am happy to hear the intelligent discussions that are going on. Questions are raised, but there are answers that are given, and we see this as a continuing healthy process to improve the overall performance of our public utilities, which are businesses affected with public interest.
Secretary, do you see this investment as the push needed para maayos na yung mga franchise issues, especially with all the issues in Congress?
Well, at the very least, for example, when Maharlika invests, then it will have a view of what's taking place within NGCP and help come up with informed decisions. So balancing the need for projects in order to spur development and the need also to have healthy returns, fair returns for the investor itself. So I think that it is good for government to have a presence there precisely to achieve that balance.
Tuesday New, DZBB.
Good morning, sirs. To President Consing. Sir, ngayon na may investment po tayo sa NGCP, pakibigyan nyo nga po kami ng picture of what or on how yung MIC ay makakaget hold of the control, not necessarily control siguro, or influence sa operation ng NGCP.
Thank you. So the objective, ma'am, was not to take control, but rather just to be able to achieve some level of influence, and you do that, and you achieve that by way of your board seats. Okay? We're basically starting from zero. So prior to this, we did not have any board seats. We were looking at it basically, we were looking over the shoulder of the shareholders, but the reality is that we had absolutely no access to such information. And now we will have access to that information. And like what the Secretary had said, we would now be able to make more informed decisions with the availability of such information.
All right. Yung sa usapin ng operations, sir, ng NGCP, hanggang saan lang ang limitasyon ng MIC para makapag-influence o makabigay ng inyong punto?
Yes. So ano po tayo, financial investor po tayo. which means basically that we will not be involved in the operations, but rather we will be involved in the governance. So hence, hopefully we can be invited to some of the more important committees, just so that we can see aspects of the operations greater than just by reading their financial statements. So we look forward to that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And on the whole, you will achieve more transparency so that we ourselves as members of the public who are providing the financing through Maharlika will have a better view of the operations of the public utility.
Sam Medinilla, Business Mirror.
For President Consing po. Hello. For President Consing po. Kanina po na-mention po nila na expected natin na earnings from dun sa shares from NGCP is 6% dividend. So magkano po kaya yun in
6.5% cash dividends, no? 6.5% multiplied by 19.7 billion. Just kindly calculate that. Yes.
Okay po. Tapos,
Well, 1.7, I think, or 1.8.
Tapos, another question po. Yung na-mention po nila na plano po ng MIC na mag-invest doon sa power generation sa Mindoro and Palawan. So, meron na po kaya tayong idea kung magkano yung i-allocate natin for that?
Actually, mag-invest po tayo dun sa transmission infrastructure ng Mindoro and Palawan. Hindi po sa generation.
Ayun.
Yes.
So, magkano po kaya yung plan?
We're still going through it now with NEA. So we're working po with NEA, NPC, Transco, and the LGUs. Yeah.
Tapos sir, yung i-connect ko lang rin po dun sa ongoing na mga congressional hearings regarding sa NGCP. Isa pong concern na na-raise doon yung alleged influence ng China doon sa operations na. Bakit hindi po kinonsider ng MIC na i-secure yung 20% shares doon sa share ng SGCC? Bakit po sa SGB po tayo bumili ng shares?
Actually, magandang tanong po yan. No? So, we have not spoken basically to the Chinese. We only saw this opportunity sa SGP level. Okay, we're not having any discussions with the Chinese, with China state grid of China rather, at this point in time. So, no conversations are occurring with them.
Pero is MIC interested in case na mag-acquire ng shares dun sa SGCC po?
If it becomes available, I think so, yes.
Yun. Tapos yung kay Sir Lotilla naman po, regarding po dun, may update na po kaya tayo regarding dun sa plan for nuclear energy. May statement po na nailabas yung DOE regarding sa plan to come out with an executive order for nuclear energy and yung sa parang plano na magkaroon rin ng legislation for nuclear energy. Isasama po kaya sa priority legislation ng Marcos administration itong nuclear? At saka may target date kaya kung kailan lalabas yung executive order for this?
Well, thank you. We're actually the Senate is the House has already approved on third reading the bill on the regulatory framework for nuclear power. Now it's in the Senate, and we are optimistic that the Senate will be able to move it forward and therefore be able to come up with the legislation during this Congress. And so we will take it from there, because we are strongest when both the executive and the legislature speak with one voice.
Kasi sir, di ba patapos na yung Congress? Yung
Well, yes. So nevertheless, what is this? The proceedings in Congress have proceeded at a brisk pace. No? They have had the committee hearings, and then they're into further discussions on this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jean Mangalus, Philstar.
Follow-up lang po sa question ni Sam. So with the MIC buying into the NGCP, does this provide some sort of security to the government, especially since ang laki ng stake ng China's State Grid Corp? Since we, as you said earlier, you want to get an insight into their operations.
Well, as I've said, there will be greater transparency, at least from the standpoint of government, and it will have a view of what the operations of NGCP, and if NGCP is stating that there is nothing to fear from the presence, then we'll be in a better position to confirm or affirm that. On the other hand, if there are other things that need to be strengthened, for example, the cybersecurity of the transmission lines of the country and the transmission facilities, then we would also be able to government will also be better able to contribute to addressing those issues.
Sir, Sec Recto said sometime in July that there has, in the 2025 budget, we haven't spent anything for the MIC, and there were no employees yet at that time. So with this maiden investment, will the MIC start getting a budget next year?
MIC has got its own capital. It already is about 75 billion pesos. Credited to it. There's another 50 billion that it's expecting currently with the Treasury, and it's really coming from the BSP's dividends due to the Philippine government that have already been paid, and the balance is coming from dividends coming from the PAGCOR. So we have not drawn those just yet because we have not started deploying, but now that we have, then we will request for those funds to be released.
You'll request it from the government.
Once we need it, we will have to request for those funds, yes.
Last question for me. The IMF recently urged the government to restore the land bank and the DBP's capital. Should the MIC start making money, is there a chance to return this capital?
If you look at the structure when it comes to dividend payments, all our dividends, in fact, accrue directly to the Bureau of the Treasury. So unlike, just like all other GOCCs, our dividends are paid to the government directly. So hence, I don't see any relief coming from us, but rather they should be, if you look at these banks, they're currently under regulatory relief. So therefore, their Tier 1 capital has not in fact suffered because of the fact that they've got a 3-year regulatory reprieve. And even if you do, the likes of Land Bank, for example, still in fact has got a significantly higher Tier 1 capital compared to global standards. So that should not be a problem. One way by which they can increase their capital would be by reducing the dividends that they pay to the government in order to build up their capital base. And the rest, I think they can take that from a third-party capital. And that's basically what the new laws currently are being amended, or pardon me, the laws rather establishing Land Bank and DBP being amended in order for them to be able to raise capital more efficiently than they could today.
Ivan Mayrina, GMA7.
To Sir Rafael with an F. Sir, you were quoted as saying that this investment would safeguard the nation's power supply from external threats and disruptions. Can you elaborate on this? What are these threats and where are they coming from?
Well, those threats don't exist, in fact, today. We just want to basically say that our presence there, at least you would be able to monitor if such threats indeed arise. But at the moment, no such threat exists, and nothing has been proven. In fact, there are no allegations of such threats existing.
May I also get your reaction to the statement of Assistant Minority Leader Arlene Brosas that this move reeks of, these are her words, reeks of crony capitalism, and that this opens doors for other cronies to profit from the NGCP?
I think you'll have to seek clarification from her since the statement came from her.
Sorry?
I think you have to seek clarification from her because the statement came from her.
Thank you.
Marisol Halili, News 5.
Sir, magandang umaga po. Sir, for ordinary people to appreciate this investment, 2 points lang po. Una, kailan po natin aasahan yung posibleng magiging pagbaba ng presyo ng kuryente through this investment, after this investment? And pangalawa po, gaano kalaki kaya yung posibleng maging adjustment because of this?
Well, we can't give you an exact date and exact amount of reduction. That's why I wanted to cite kung ano ang actual natin na experience dahil napatayo at nag-operate yung transmission connection. So I cited yung in the case of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection na yung spot prices bumaba ng almost 2 pesos in Luzon and 177 in the Visayas and 130 in Mindanao. In Cebu, Negros, Panay, the study made by the Independent Electricity Market Operator or IMAP shows that the reduction was by 1 peso and 27 centavos in Cebu, 2 pesos in Negros, and around 1 peso and 74 centavos in Panay. Now, this does not translate into actual reductions in the bill. This is the wholesale electricity spot market. So kung ang isang electric cooperative or distribution utility ay bumibili ng kanyang elektrisidad ng 100% from the spot market, maramdaman ng consumer yan. But hindi naman 100% bumibili sa spot market kasi nga spot market very volatile, it goes up and down, so you don't want to expose consumers to that. Ang ginagawa nila, meron silang power supply agreements na hindi naapektuhan nitong pagtaas pagbaba. So minimix yun, no? Yung power supply agreements sourced from generation companies directly, and then a certain percentage comes from the spot market, and then it gives you the total price for generation. But what that means, however, is that in fact merong reduction na experience. It depends on where you are, what are the supply agreements that your distribution utility has entered into, and so on. No, so but definitely. The spot market prices, for example, for what we call the competitive customers, yung mga customers na malalaking demand, was was around 5 pesos something per kilowatt hour in the more recent days. No, so you compare that with the generation rates that the captive customers, yung mga hindi pwedeng pumili ng kanilang supply, medyo malaki yung difference din. So significant yung epekto nito sa consumers din. Thank you.
Evelyn Quiros, Filipino Mirror.
Good morning. Kay President Consing. Bali, na-mention nyo po yung 50 billion from Land Bank, 25 billion from DBP. Yun po ba hawak ng MIC or nasa Bureau of Treasury?
Nasa ano po siya, Land Bank and DBP. But what we did at the onset was we appointed the Bureau of the Treasury to be our interim cash manager.
Okay.
So what you wanted to do, ma'am, was to basically leave it with DBP and Land Bank so that so as not to adversely impact their liquidity and give them basically about a year so that once we start deploying, then they can release the funds to us.
Sir, yung 19.7 billion na investment po sa SGP, dito po nanggaling? Dito po kinuha?
Dito po manggagaling.
Dito po manggagaling.
Yes, ma'am.
So aside from this, wala pa po tayong ibang significant transactions sa MIC?
This is going to be our inaugural and also our flagship investment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Follow-up ko lang kay Secretary Lotilla. Sir, since congressional franchise po yung NGCP, dati po ba nasa government po ito?
Yung predecessor ng NGCP ay Transco. And before that, National Power Corporation or NPC. So fully government owned. But under IPIRA, ang desisyon ng Kongreso ay i-privatize yung operations and management of the transmission grid. So yung assets themselves remain assets owned by the Philippine government, but it's the operation and maintenance that has been transferred to the private concessionaire.
So, are you confident or yung observation niyo lang po personal, is it efficient, compliant naman po yung NGCP? And darating din po, since kayo po yung DOE Secretary before 2009, pwede po bang ibalik uli sa gobyerno or talagang pang-private na lang po ito? Thank you, sir.
Well, in the case of what is this? NGCP, there is a performance audit that is conducted by Energy Regulatory Commission, and the ERC is going to be releasing that report on NGCP's performance. As you know, the NGCP does not recognize the Department of Energy as one of its regulators, but it recognizes that the Energy Regulatory Commission is its regulator, and therefore ERC can come out with the report. Now, at the same time, the Congress, as the one that approves the franchise, as you pointed out, has also the power to compel information to be given to it so that it can accordingly plan for future actions on franchises in general, no? And on NGCP in particular. Thank you.
Michelle Gilang, All TV.
Good morning po. For Secretary Lotilla, just to help the public better understand what this investment is about, could you please explain how this investment translate to more affordable access to electricity?
I try to explain that in terms of, thank you for that question. I try to explain that in terms of, okay, may shortage tayo sa isa ng generation. So we need to put up a generation plant. But the generation plant cannot contribute or supply power to its customers unless there are connecting lines from the generation plant to the customers. And that's where the transmission lines, the high voltage transmission lines of NGCP are very important. Because without those lines, we cannot provide the power. Just to show, again, a bit of history. When this administration came into office in 2022, 600 megawatts of power in Bataan was stranded. Could not be brought to Metro Manila where we had a shortage because the transmission lines were not finished. And so, yun ang tinutukan ng ating gobyerno, ng administrasyon, upang matapos yun at makapag-benefit yung customers from the additional capacity. So this is really where we need everyone to come together. A second one is the NGCP as systems operator is the one that contracts what we call the ancillary services. Itong reserves, the ancillary reserves. And the ancillary reserves will have to be contracted by NGCP. Now, in the past, we saw that while the grid code required a certain volume of reserves, these were not being contracted. And therefore, if there are imbalances in the system, in the power supply, yung reserba ay walang reserba na makapasok. So dapat the systems operator will also have to be responsible enough to contract the needed ancillary services for the system. So all of these together can contribute to bringing down the rates for the consumer. Marami kang supply, yung supply makarating sa mga nangangailangan at nawala na yung mga line constraints. No? Kasi kung may line constraints, ang linya ay maka-accommodate lamang ng a certain volume of power, and the demand is higher, then you're going to have experience higher rates. So all of these taken together would help reduce loss. Thank you.
Alvin Baltazar, Radyo Pilipinas.
Secretary Lotilia, good morning po. Secretary, kanina nabanggit nyo doon sa nuclear energy, yung development doon. Kung sakasakali bang ma-pursue natin yung paggamit ng nuclear energy sa bansa, magkano yung matitipid sa kuryente ng ordinaryong taong bayan?
We cannot say that at this point, but over the life of the nuclear power plant, which has a longer life than the average plants, it will be spread over that period. It will be lower. But this is among the requests I have to President Consing to look into the financing aspect and the financing costs of nuclear power, because the President indicated that that's where we need help. And the financial analysis can very well be undertaken by Maharlika Investment Fund, so that government can have a better sense of the financing costs and the returns as well.
Secretary, since natanong ko na yung sa nuclear, any update doon sa talks ni President Marcos doon sa US Nuclear Energy Company na nagpaplano na dalhin yung nuclear technology dito sa Pilipinas nung bumisita siya sa US?
Well, the President is not focused on one company or only a few companies, but is constantly makes himself available to be informed on what are the developments with the different companies. But at the end of the day, if under the current IPIRA, it's only private sector that can enter the generation space, it's not even the government, then we will have to work with private sector to bring in nuclear power.
Thank you, Sec.
Eden Santos, Net 25.
Follow-up lang to po sa tanong ni Kuya Alvin. Sa part po ni President Consing, open po ba kayo na mag-invest sa nuclear power po?
I think what you have to first look at would be whether we will be covered, in fact, by the cross-ownership restrictions between generation and transmission. So conceptually po, we will be open to it. but we just want to make sure that we're in fact staying within what we're allowed under the law.
Clarification lang po, dun sa ROI po, dito sa investment nyo na ito, meron po ba tayong target kung ilang taon at how much po yung kikitain natin from this investment?
We can't talk about that in public kasi we're dealing with a public company. So everything that we say will be, it'll be a price-sensitive data and information. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have more? Do you have more questions from MPC? That wraps up our press briefing for this morning. Thank you very much to President Consing and Secretary Lotilia. And thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning.